Hey, it's Brian Post here. I'm the Executive Director up at the Stone Trust, and I'm down here at Rockin Walls as an examiner for the day. We're doing a DSWA test day here. We've got about 10 folks working on their Level 2 and Level 1 and also Level 3 test stints. And just take a moment here to talk a little bit about what the testing is and why we do it. So that the test stints that we have going on here are time tests. You have to take down and rebuild a section of wall in 7 hours, and for each level there's a different quality standard that is needed in order to pass. And what that establishes is a skill in terms of efficiency, quality of build, standard best practices, and it's an incredible learning experience. I think that we always say up at the Stone Trust, if you want to be able to get better at walling quickly, the best way to do it is to go through the certification process. And certifying, going through that certification really makes you employ those best practices in order to get through the test. You have to work efficiently, you have to be building structurally sound wall, and when you start getting into Level 2 and higher, it's got to be really good quality, top quality work in order to pass. Whether you pass or fail, the big point is it's a learning experience, and you can, if you fail, you can retake the test. And many people, especially when you get to Level 2 and higher, have to retake the test. A very challenging test. It means something when you pass. And I think that for each level, now I'm Master Craftsman, so there's 4 levels. Master Craftsman's the 4th level. Each test that I've done, I learn a lot and I build my skill up, and that happens pass or fail. I'd almost say when you fail you tend to learn more, in fact, but regardless, it's just a way to really push yourself in a way that no job or employer is ever going to do. There's something about having that time limit, and then when you go back to your job, you realize, hey, I built a cheek end in a day. Why can't I do that on my job? So a little bit in terms of the actual test levels. Level 1 is building about 27 square feet of wall in a day. The basic requirements are it has to be structurally sound, good, reasonably good quality work. You jump up to Level 2, you're adding in a cheek end, so you have to build a square end, sometimes called a wall head, and with that is 27 square feet of wall. And then when you get up to Level 3 and 4, you're getting into 2-part tests. The first part A, is untimed, and that's building features. One of the Part A features here is a curved wall, done by Mark Juris, of course, here at Rockin Walls. That's a very good example of passing Level 3 quality work. And then once you do those features, then you have to do a time test. Time test for Level 3 is about 45 square feet of retaining wall. It's about 7 tons of stone, take down and rebuild in 7 hours. And then by the time you get up to Level 4 Master Craftsman, it gets a little more complicated. You've got about 12 different features to choose from. You have to build 4 of them, and the last one's on the clock. The first 3 are untimed, the last one's on the clock. So that gets into a more complex test. Those upper levels, the 3 and 4, are really testing you on two different skills. So one is building very refined work in those untimed features. It's testing your ability to shape stone and to build to a very fine line. And then the time test is really about testing your endurance, still building good quality work, really in truth, very good quality work. But you've got to have the speed and the endurance to do it. You're talking about massive amount of tons of stone in a day.
And what are some of the benefits for employers?
Yeah. The benefits of testing, I think, are just huge. It sets a known expectation in terms of how much you should be building per day, and it sets a known standard in terms of the look and also in terms of the structural integrity. So myself, when I am hiring folks, and I often work with 4 to 6 up wallers, I know if they're Level 2, when I'm figuring out the cost of a job, I know how much they can build per day, and I know the quality that it's going to be, and I know they're all going to look about the same. I'll have 6 wallers on a job, and you can't tell who did what, because we've all been trained the same way, we're all building at a similar rate, and it just works so smoothly. My usual training when we get to a new job, and I've got 4 or 5 wallers helping me, I'll point to a section of wall or a drawing and say, okay, this is what we're building. This is the style we're matching. And then I say, let's get to work. That's about all it takes with level 2 wallers. It's basically, are you building random? Are you building coursed? How tight are we going with this stone? And then away you go. Very, very different than when you're bringing on untrained folks. At this point, I basically try to only hire certified people, and generally certified level 2 or higher. And it just works phenomenally well. I think that anybody who is looking at hiring someone to do dry stone work should be looking for a certified waller. You know that they're going to be doing quality work in terms of the structural integrity, and you know that they can work at speed.
And you're also a certified landscape architect. And what do you feel the values in that aspect besides what you had mentioned for speed and production and quality?
Yeah, so as a landscape architect, I'm licensed in the state of Vermont, and I find that whenever I do a lot of consulting work primarily with projects related to dry stone. That's really my area of expertise, and I work in the specification writing process to say certified wallers are required. That's one of the requirements of who's going to build this. Depending on the project, I may specify a certification level, or I may say, people placing the stones need to be level 2, and there needs to always be a level 3 or 4 foreman on the site. And it just makes it so that, just like you would specify that you're using a licensed plumber, a licensed electrician, it's the same thing here. You know that you're getting a good quality result without having to micromanage every stone that's placed. And as a designer, that's key. If you have that specification that certified wallers are doing the work, you don't need to specify nearly as much detail in the drawings. It's still not bad to, but it becomes less important. And I think that we're seeing a lot more projects, especially in terms of public works projects, requiring certified wallers to do the work. So it's another benefit of becoming certified, is it enables you to get in on some of these projects. And for those folks that are independently employed, self-employed, being certified allows you to jump on someone else's crew as a subcontractor or as an employee for short term when a big project comes up, and not having worked with them or even worked with that stone before, you can very quickly jump on and go with the flow of the crew and the project. It really opens up a lot of doors, and that also opens up the doors of learning more, because when you're working with other people on jobs, that's how you then pick up additional skills. So each step of the way, I think there's a real tendency, like any sort of licensing or certification program, everybody always kind of moans about it from time to time and comes up with things that could be better, things that, this testing program focuses a lot on freestanding walls. A lot of wallers over here, and landscapers and masons are doing a lot of retaining walls, less freestanding walls. Well, if you have the skill to build a good freestanding wall, you have the skill to build a good retaining wall. So just because you're not being tested on actually what you might do for the majority of your work doesn't mean that the test doesn't have value. And I think that's true all the way through the process. What you have to learn in order to pass these tests applies to whatever project you're doing, even if it's not exactly the projects that you're doing. Time and time again, I see people that are able to really improve the work they're doing on their jobs from having done the testing. So yeah, highly recommend it, absolutely.
And the Dry Stone Walling Association of Great Britain, just briefly.
Yeah, so the Dry Stone Walling Association of Great Britain is who, it's the body that does the certification. So us as examiners are certified through them. In order to be an examiner, you have to be a master craftsman. And then an average of every 3 years, you have to go over and they do what's called a standard and assessment, where all the examiners come together and mark tests and talk about it, so that we make sure we're all examining in the same way. It's really made as objective as possible in terms of, we've got very detailed rubrics of how we're marking these things out. It's not just a subjective, I think you're good enough so you pass. It's by the numbers. And The association was formed in 1968. It's the oldest dry stone walling association or group in the world. And they were the first organization that started the certification. And it's now pretty much the world standard. It's recognized, you know, if you're in Japan or if you're in South Africa or South America or here in the US or Canada, if you say you're DSWA certified, everybody knows what that means. So it's the way to go.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Absolutely.